everybody, Lisa here from Supportive Tarot. Welcome back to my channel. I have a very special guest on my channel today. So this is Jess from Stellar Tarot.
Hi guys.
We thought it would be super fun to do a collab.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Lisa and I actually found each other on YouTube, and like we almost like instantly were like, oh my god, you live close, you're a witch, you love tarot, let's collab. We haven't even talked yet, we've never met each other, let's collab.
Yeah, right? I mean, it just makes perfect sense to me. So I thought what we would do is we'll do one video for my channel, and then we're going to do a different collab for Jess's channel, so definitely you'll want to check that out.
And the link will be down below.
Yes, we'll have all the important links for both videos down below and all the information. I'm such a spaz because I'm super excited to be on this channel doing this right now.
I'm so excited too, it's all good.
Okay, so for a beginner witch kit, what we kind of wanted to do was put together some suggestions for supplies for anybody who's just getting into witchcraft, starting to dabble, and just some easy to, like, some accessible things, I think.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so that you don't run out and spend like a crap ton of money on stuff that you don't need.
Yeah, exactly. I think the most important tool is like yourself and just your willingness to play. So yeah, I think we'll just dive right in and start showing stuff. I think I'm going to start with my very favorite witchy tool ever. And this is the one thing that I would say I was so glad that I invested in, because it was the one thing that I think I've used the longest, and it's also the one thing that I feel like has the most like multi-purpose things, and that is an altar-sized cauldron. So I burn stuff in this, I put liquids in this, mostly I burn stuff in this. I really like to burn things.
I burn things too. Such a pyro.
Totally. I think that's the funnest part about witchcraft, is just lighting things on fire.
You're just like, I need to get rid of this. I'm going to write it down so I can burn it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I use this for so many different things. I used it for a smudging bowl, so I'll put sand in it and then I'll put my incense in there. I feel like it's usable for a bunch of different things. I mean, that said though, I think there's a whole bunch of things that are fire safe that can stand in for a cauldron. But I love my cauldron. So that would be the first thing I would be like, if you're going to buy one witchy, like, official witchy tool kind of thing.
Something to sink your money into. I agree. That's totally worth putting a few bucks into. And a smaller one like this won't run you tons and tons of money. That's the nice thing. Yeah. You're talking a big, proper, like, put it on a tripod over the fire-size cauldron that you see in like Hocus Pocus and stuff. Like, you're going to set yourself back a couple $100. But yeah, these... I think mine, when I purchased it a few years ago, was like $15 Canadian.
Yeah, and they last forever. Like, I've had this.
They're cast iron.
Yeah, I've had this since I was like 19 years old, and it's perfect. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And because it's on little feet, the bottom might get warm when I'm burning stuff.
But it doesn't wreck your tabletops.
Yeah, so I can just pretty much put it on anything, and it's great. I've never used the little handle, but I love it for aesthetic reasons.
Well, I have a cauldron too. Mine's behind me, and you can tell that mine is
so pretty.
It's very rusty on the inside because it's been outside. It's got burnt ashes and stuff in it right now.
This, like,
the sun and moon motif.
Stunning.
It had these two little handles here. It had like a chain that you could use to like hang it and almost use it like, you know those Catholic incense
like
things
smudge?
where you shake it?
Yes.
It had that. I never use it, and mine's got feet too, so that it sits. But I also picked a cauldron as one of my witchy things, but I went cheap. I love this. This is what I used, or a version of this is what I used for a couple of years before I invested in a cauldron. And stainless steel bowls can also be used to burn things in. Sometimes my cauldron becomes like a candle holder. If I don't have anything else to burn my candles in or on. The only thing is you're going to need like a folded up tea towel or like a cork hot plate or something underneath it if it's sitting on a table, so that you don't burn the bottom of it. But this will do in a pinch, and until you can invest in one. Especially like if you're a teenager, you can't like go out and buy your own stuff yet. If you can't get to a witchy store, if they don't stock them. You know, like, I remember that was one thing I really wanted for years and years and years, but I couldn't find cauldrons anywhere. My local witchy store just didn't carry them. So something like this is what I used for ages.
I think that's super smart, and you could probably even use something like that for, like, scrying too, if you decided to get into something like that, because it's so reflective and silver.
Yeah, you totally can. And also the mixing bowl can double as like preparing herb mixtures for your own incense blends. You could use it to prepare like spell ingredients to stuff dream pillows with, all that kind of stuff. It's multi-purpose. Yeah, it's multi-purpose.
That's awesome. What do I want to show next? Okay, so I will show, the other thing I would say is candles. And I brought, I actually found these recently. These are like little teeny beeswax birthday candles, but you can use like any kind of candle. But what
cute.
Aren't these adorable? I saw these are like good little mini beeswax. Yeah, they're so adorable. And they came in like a huge, I put them in a little tin, but I think they were like, there's like probably 20 of them in here for like, I don't know, like $3 or something.
Cool.
But when I do spell work with candles, I like to be able to use the whole thing up while I'm doing the spell.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't want something that's going to sit on my altar for days and days and days unless I'm doing that kind of a working anyway.
Yeah, a bigger working, you want a bigger candle.
Yeah, where you can keep relighting. Yeah, I just want it to go away. And I will say one thing I've discovered about beeswax is that the wax completely, like, I don't know where it goes. Do you know where it goes? It just disappears.
It does. It goes into the atmosphere, which is why beeswax candles are supposed to be safer to burn than, like, say, your paraffin wax candles and things like that. Beeswax and soy are supposed to be better for the air and things like that. It does actually go into your atmosphere and stuff.
Gotcha. I was curious because the first time I burned a beeswax candle, I was like, it all goes away, which is exactly what I want for a spell candle. Yes. I want it to just like be gone. Yeah. And I also grabbed these things. I think these are like about $2. These little teeny spell candle holders. Did you? We're matchy.
This is hilarious.
These are perfect for like just plopping your little spell candles into. And if it's this is really skinny. But all I do with a candle that's too skinny to fit properly, because it's going to be all tippy, is I just burn a little bit of the top, dip it in, and just plop it in there, and it'll hold itself up just fine. Yeah. But yeah, little candles are great for workings, and I think candle magic, at least for me in my journey, was probably the most accessible, like, first thing that I did was intention, light a candle, and you're good to go.
For me, candle magic was really accessible because I could come by candles really easily and inexpensively, like at dollar stores, at witchy shops, secondhand stores, things like that. And, you know, my parents, well, my mother at least was Catholic, and that was how we were raised for a long time. So burning a candle was something that I did on a regular basis anyways, just to set the mood or just because I felt like it. And it wasn't any different than what I did. So if my mother did happen to walk into my room in the middle of me doing a working, I didn't necessarily look like I was doing
witchy stuff.
Now, mind you, she let me do my witchy thing, but she wanted me to keep it discreet. She never wanted it to be something that, like, if she did walk into my room, there'd be, like, a pentacle drawn on the floor in chalk, and, you know, like, she didn't want to walk into my room and have it look like a scene out of The Craft, is basically it. So I could put a candle on my nightstand and sit on my bed and meditate and work my magic, and it was no big deal.
That's amazing. I did not have that kind of environment when I was a teenager and I was just beginning to dabble. So for me, everything needed to be easy to tuck away and to keep fairly secret.
She didn't want it to be, like, out there, but she wasn't happy about it either. So nobody think that I had, like, this amazingly supportive mother or anything, because she definitely wasn't. She was like, I think she thought it was a phase. So she's like, if I just let her do it, then she'll be over it in 6 months.
Oh, like, go ahead and get it out of your system.
Exactly. Yeah. She'll be over it in 6 months, and then it'll be a thing of the past.
Not so much.
Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Mom.
Not really.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry. Totally. That's awesome.
Yeah. So my thing with candles, too, that was one of the things we were emailing back and forth, was little candles. Except I have the little candles that go in these holders.
I love those so much.
And these are kind of cool because you can pick them up relatively inexpensively. In fact, I found white versions of them and party versions of them at Value Village for $1.99.
I'm super jealous. Actually, there's a floating candle in there,
too. There is a little floaty candle in there, which I will probably stick in a bath at some point. But the thing I love about these is you can buy them at almost any witchy shop, online or in person. Same with the candle holders. These are pretty universal. And you can get different colors to match your intentions or the type of magic that you're doing. And if you roll the outside or like anoint them with a bit of oil, you can actually roll them in loose herbs and they will somewhat stick to the candle as you're burning it. I just like to tuck a piece of little folded up paper towel underneath the holders to catch any little herb bits that might drop down.
Aw.
Yep.
That's actually really smart. I actually, what I have started playing with recently because of one of your Witchcrafting Wednesday videos actually, is the little tea lights where you showed warming them and then melting the wax in the tea light and stirring like herbs and oils in. I was like, mind blown.
I didn't even come up with the idea. So I'm not the genius. I saw this amazing person on Instagram. Her name is Cody, but her sorry not work safe name on Instagram is Tarot Readings from a Bitch.
I love it.
Her tagline is what tarot cards are really trying to fucking tell you, and I love it. She's very like blunt, and she comes across like very very sassy and very like, this is how it is. If you can't handle a swear word once in a while, don't, or not even once in a while, practically every post, don't follow her. But she had that on her Instagram one day, and I was like, that is amazing. That is amazing. I don't drink coffee, but I do have a coffee maker for when people come over. And so I totally used, like, as you saw, I put hot water through mine because I'm like, I'm not going to drink any coffee.
So no point making a pot.
No,
I love the idea that I could combine a pot of freshly brewed coffee with some magic. That just makes me super happy because I'm a total coffee addict.
What's that one? It's Morticia Adams, and she's like sipping her tea or her coffee or something, and I think she's the meme says something like I love the smell of coffee and witchcraft.
Oh yes, I need that.
Yes.
I haven't seen it, but that sounds amazing.
And I'm like, substitute tea,
and then we're good. Me. I love tea and coffee. I'm like a what do you call it? A poly beverage.
Polycaffeinated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the taste of coffee. Coffee and my stomach don't get along, so that's why I don't drink it.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it happens.
But
It's not my favorite. There's tons of teas. I'm good with tea.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So what do you have next?
Okay, let's talk sort of smudging. So when I was new to witchcraft, I thought like to smudge you needed like a bundled sage wand, and those weren't the easiest to come by. So when I first got started, actually smudged with incense. And I think it's kind of important to remember, especially if you're new, there's a lot of cross information out there about like what you should use, what you can use for different things. And I think for somebody who's just new and getting into witchcraft, it's important to remember that like if you make it magical, it's magical. Mm-hmm. Intent is everything. Yep. And I love these little, for incense, for smudging, or for anything, I love these little Japanese incenses. This is a brand called Morning Star, and this is a sandalwood, which is one of my favorite smells ever. Mm-hmm. But what I like about these is that, well, two things actually. They burn the whole way through. There's no wood in the center of these, which makes them really nice because you just use them all up.
How do you hold it then?
Well, this is the thing. Most of them come with, and I didn't bring one with me, but most of them come with a little square incense holder in every single box.
Oh, okay.
But I also have a little separate one here that's teeny, teeny, tiny.
Okay.
And it's just got a little hole in the center. Whoops.
That apparently makes it go all the way through.
I didn't realize the hole went all the way through because I always have it on like an altar tile or something. But yeah, you can just pop it in and you can burn your incense that way. So they burn upright. Although I have like on my altar a smudging bowl with some sand in it.
Yeah.
And I usually just stick my incense in
there
most
that
of the
works
time.
too.
Yeah, but I will use incense like in a bowl or in a little holder, and I'll just wave this under my stuff, or I'll take my stuff over it to cleanse or charge or whatever it is that I'm trying to do. So I love a really good incense, and these just, I feel like they burn really clean, and I just love them. I recently got one called Aqua that I can't stop burning because it smells legitimately like fresh water.
I have incense too, but I went a slightly different route. I didn't do like smudging when I first started off because I never actually came across the word until I got back into witchcraft as an adult. I did take a break for a little while, and so when I was a teenager, incense sticks were what I used, like the big long ones, because for me it was about creating a magical environment, and incense totally does it for me. The smoke of it, you can scry in the smoke, you can just sit there and meditate with the scent around you, and it helps to get you into like a ritualistic, magical state of being. And now, as a more experienced witch, I realize I can pair different scents for different purposes, for different moods. So like for instance, the Night Queen incense by Hem here. This one I only burn for two purposes. Either one, I'm on my period, so I'm honoring my sacred moon time, my moon blood time. Or I burn it when I'm working with my matron goddess, the Morrigan. So I will burn it when I'm doing readings for my clients that have to do with her, or if I'm doing a ritual dedicated to her. And then I have some of these cheap ones from the dollar store that I just wanted to try out. So I have Sandalwood and Myrrh.
Nice.
And I will burn them for different purposes. Myrrh I'll burn if I'm doing a Mother Mary Oracle reading for clients. Sandalwood I'll burn if I'm wanting to connect with more of like a god aspect rather than a goddess.
That masculine vibe.
It's got a very musky kind of almost masculine scent. Sandalwood is put in a lot of men's colognes and deodorants and stuff.
I did not know that. That
I'm
makes
married to a
perfect
man,
sense.
so it's, that's how I know.
That would make sense.
Yeah, and then this one is like specifically a witchy one. So it's I don't even know, it's called like incense?
Huh.
Yeah, and I got this one at a store in, I think this one was from a store in Langley.
Mind if I smell it?
Yeah, go for it. And it's called musk, and again, it's a really like kind of masculine, heavy kind of fragrance, but it's wonderful. So I pair different incenses for different things. I also use them to cleanse and to smudge with, because I'm not the biggest fan of sage. I kind of think it smells like pot when it burns.
It does totally smell like pot.
Thank you. Because like anyone who's like a regular like pot smoker, marijuana smoker, has said to me like, "Really, you think it smells like that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think it smells like that."
It totally does to me. It totally does to me.
There's some people who partake in the wacky weed who tell me that I'm crazy, but yeah, I think it smells like pot. So, but I do feel a big energetic shift when I use it. So I do use it, but I generally use it with windows and doors open whenever possible.
There you go. Yeah, so that you get to air out the room.
Yeah.
I have to air out whenever I do incense or anything because Peggy's a little sensitive to some of the things that I burn, but she's still fine with me burning it. She's just like throw open the bedroom window, like make sure it airs out good, and then we're good.
Yeah.
So speaking of smelly things, I also wanted to show just some essential oils. So these are great for any kind of working. So you can do them for different purposes. Like I really like using peppermint for anything that's related to abundance or prosperity. I like lavender for everything because it smells amazing. And everything's good with lavender.
Everything
right?
lavender.
Yeah.
Everything lavender. I love lavender.
And then the third one I would say, if you were gonna like get a little like selection to play with, the third one I would say is something citrusy. Because citrus is, like, lavender is really good for sort of calming and relaxing, or anything sort of around peace or healing, spirituality, things like that. But I find that citrus is really great for more revitalizing or confidence.
Energizing.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got this really inexpensive Bliss blend at, like, a Walmart for $4 or something.
Nice.
It's probably not the best quality ever, but if you're looking for a scent to set a mood or to add to attention, you can get stuff fairly inexpensively. I think I got the lavender at Costco and I can get like 3 packs for like something ridiculous.
I think the difference between like how a lot of like holistic people will use essential oils compared to how a lot of witches use essential oils, we don't typically use them topically or internally.
Agree. Yeah.
So that for me, that means I don't have to invest in like doTERRA or Young Living or expensive ones that are meant to be actually used in a semi-medicinal sense. If you're burning them in the air in an oil warmer or a diffuser or something, they really don't have to be the best quality unless you're really sensitive to
that kind
perfumes
of stuff.
or things like that. Yeah.
I would basically say, like, if you want something that you can dilute and like use as an anointing oil or put on your skin, make sure that the bottle says 100% pure essential oil.
But
and
even then, that's not regulated necessarily.
That's true. There's a bunch of
it's actually really not fair. In Canada and in the States, it's not as regulated as it probably should be. I know that the EU has more stringent regulations of
on
that.
essential oils, yeah.
But in Canada and the States, it doesn't. That's not necessarily the case. So I would say if you're gonna, you want to make, if you know you're going to be coming in contact with your skin with them a lot, then yeah, you probably want to invest in a little bit more higher quality. But if you're putting them into incenses that you're going to burn, if you're going to put them into like very small amounts into like a big bathtub, you don't need to worry about it quite so much. It's not the highest priority. I went a slightly different direction when it comes to oils. I didn't get into oils for a very long time. I didn't know what to do with them. So I did start quite young working with different herbs and other things. And when I started as a teenager, again, not a lot of money. So I picked stuff that I could find around me in my neighborhood, in the area, or I grabbed herbs and spices out of my mother's kitchen cabinet. Because there's some amazing ones that you can access right away. Almost every kitchen is going to have salt of some kind. You can use your typical non-iodized or iodized kitchen table salt. You can use a Himalayan salt like this one. This one actually is a grinder. I use this in my kitchen, but I also sometimes open up the cap and I put it into like salt blends for baths and stuff. You can use it to draw like salt circles outside and ritual, or inside for that matter. There's other herbs too, like sage, rosemary, thyme. These are all herbs that your typical kitchen witch or green witch is going to have both in their kitchen cabinet and in their sacred space. Star anise is really hella expensive, but anise seed, this was like a $5 McCormick bottle of it, and most people who are getting star anise are popping the seeds out of it anyways. Why not save yourself some trouble and some coin? And then other two big ones are cloves and cinnamon. And I got these in my bulk section of the local grocery store, because seriously, if you go to a witchy shop and buy cinnamon sticks and cloves, you're going to pay tons of money for it.
Yeah, totally.
And especially if you're grinding them up already, putting them into incenses or things like that, you're probably going to want food grade anyways, because it's going to be going into the air, so why not save a little money? And then, you know, you can pick up enough to using your magic, and you can pick up enough to reload up your spice jars too.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And spices and herbs, like a lot of the herbs that you'll see, this is what actually was a really big turn off for me in spell books when I was new to witchcraft, was there was so much of a call in these books for these fancy ingredients. I was like, I don't know where to get any of this stuff. But if you do some lookups on kitchen witchery or on just really good spices and herbs, there's so much stuff that's readily available at the dollar store or at the bulk store, and you can get whatever you need. Yeah, and there's so many ways you can incorporate stuff like that into your practice.
You can grow a lot of your own too. Like I have grown herbs in my garden for multiple years now. Things like rosemary, thyme, sage,
Mint's an easy grower.
Oh, peppermint is amazing.
It'll take over everything.
It'll take over everything. Lemon balm too. Lemon balm will take over. Peppermint and lemon balm, put them in pots. But like, you know, those you can totally, lavender as well. Lavender grows like huge amounts. Those you can grow in your garden, and most people will think that you're just growing them for your kitchen. And so if you're trying to keep your witchcraft kind of more discreet and things like that, it's an amazing way to get access to some of the ones that are maybe not quite so common in the grocery store, but you can still access really easily at a local greenhouse or nursery.
That's great advice. Yeah, it's totally great advice. Okay, let's talk. Actually, do you want to go first on crystals? Because I know we both got a few to show.
We had a couple of overlaps when we were talking in the emails. So the two big overlaps that we had were anything quartz, but specifically we both love clear quartz and amethyst. Yeah. Amethyst was like my favorite crystal even as a kid. I had like a geode with amethyst in it. I had big tumbly pieces of it. And I absolutely fell in love with amethyst quite early on because it's a really good multitasker.
It like can do anything. I feel like it's good for charging just about any intention.
And it's I really use it when I want to calm down or bring my energy down a level. I use it when I want to do healing work. It's amazing for like energetic healing work, intuitive healing work, things like that. Maybe not necessarily so much for like physical ailments and things, but even then I feel like you could probably use amethyst for it anyways. And clear quartz is pretty much your cure-all, I guess.
It's like the all-rounder if you need one, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you got to remember, like, you know, witchcraft of today we have the ability to be a little fancier because we have access to lots of different stones from all over the world. But the witches of yesteryear would have access to like the stones they could pick up off the ground, little ones that they would maybe find while they're out walking and things like that. Yeah. So crystals is not something that I feel that you have to invest a lot of money in. If you really feel drawn to it, you know, obviously go nuts. If you can. I have a crystal collection. As Lisa learned a few minutes ago, I am a tea whore and I am a crystal whore.
Yes, exactly. I have the most delicious tea right now because she had 70 to choose from. I was like, how do I pick? How do I pick a tea?
Yeah.
Right now? It's pretty great.
Yeah, so Amethyst, clear quartz is one of my favorites too. And also, if you remember from like grade school science class, all the colors of the rainbow can be found in the spectrum of white light. You bend it through a prism. The same kind of theory applies with clear quartz. It has that ability to refract different colors if you hold it up in the right light, which means it contains all the colors of the rainbow inside it, which means it can be multi-purpose. So if you want to access the red aspects of clear quartz, access those. Do your root chakra work with it, or whatever
I love
it is.
that.
But
oh my gosh.
when I first started off, I had 4 crystals, and clear quartz was one of them because I knew I could imagine it in any color. And I've done things like put different colored cloths or papers underneath it if I want to visually remind myself what color it was. Because at the time when I started, I didn't have money to invest in lots and lots of crystals. And clear quartz and amethyst are pretty cheap. You can come across them pretty regularly. So
Yeah,
they're
really
usually
easy
not
to
super
find.
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. I was the same. Clear quartz rather was the first crystal that I worked with, and I still have my first clear quartz. It's about that same size, maybe a little bit longer. And I still, when I do readings for clients, I put that on the table. Like that's the one that I've been working with the longest. I have a real affinity for it, and it is definitely my all-arounder. Like if I had to take one with me, it's going to be clear quartz. Yeah. And if I got to take 2, it'd be clear quartz and amethyst. So those are definitely like my top 2 as well.
Yeah.
But I like to have, I have quite a few crystals, but I like to focus on stuff that's fairly easy to find. And the ones that I like to work with, I really love working with rose quartz. This one's fairly pale, but they're like usually a light pink, like a soft light pink. And I love working with them for self-healing, for self-love, for self-worth. I like working with them for anything around compassion or forgiveness, that kind of thing. I find their energy to be very gentle.
Yes, anything that requires a gentle hand, that's me too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I go to rose quartz for that every time. And then I am, like, as any of you who watch me regularly know, the most ridiculously hyper person a lot of the time. So I really like to have a grounding stone. These are actually, this is a piece of hematite, but this is the magnetic hematite. And you can find this everywhere. Like you can sometimes even find this in like kitchen stores. This literally came off of my fridge when I brought it here today.
You know what? Like I have seen magnetic hematite. I think it's the synthetic kind that they like pull it together and they magnetize it. But you can get like hematite bracelets and rings in like little gift shops for pennies.
It's so easy to find, and it is a great grounder.
Yeah.
I like the weight of it. There's a few other stones that I also like for grounding, and really for me, anything that has a little bit of weight or I feel a heaviness to it is great for grounding for me. And then the other stone that I think is really pretty easy to find nowadays is tiger's eye, and I don't know. There we go. Yeah, it's got a little bit of like that gold band running through it.
It's got a nice reflect. When you hold it to the light, like it kind of color changes a little bit and some of the colors come out more and
they kind of shift.
Yeah.
And this is a great one for sort of like, I'm kind of thinking sacral chakra, but like I'm thinking like anything self-confidence, courage, strength, anything you would associate with tiger. But yeah, just generally this is a great one for bringing up the energy a little bit more,
yeah,
I would say.
I would agree. Anything to do with working with sacred sexuality type of issues too, resolving your feelings about, your reproductive organs or your sex life or just your sexuality in general. Tiger's eye is a big go-to for me for that as well.
Yeah, it's a really another good all-arounder for things like that. So, yeah, and with crystals, again, I would say you don't need any of this stuff at all. But with crystals, yeah, you pick 1 or 2 that you like the look of. You can probably make it work in a whole bunch of different ways. And read about that one crystal and learn about it and get closer to it, and you'll find that it can really show up for you in your practice.
Honestly, I have like 3 or 4 books on crystals, and every book says something slightly different about every crystal. Every website says something slightly different about every crystal. I think really you go with what, you maybe look at the 3 or 4 key things that it can do for you and let your intuition be the guide. I know when you're first starting out that can be hard, but try your best to kind of get your mind out of it and get your intuition in so that you can figure out, how you feel about that crystal, what you think it will work for. Because as you were saying earlier, if you make it magical, it's magical. That's how it works.
Yeah. So yeah, love those. do I want to get into next? How about this? Something for the elements. So something I like to have in my practice is something that represents the elements. What's kind of cool is everything we've shown so far already covers the elements. Like we've got incense for air, we've got cauldrons, which you could put water in for water. We have oils, which could also be water. We have stones for earth, and we have like incense again for fire, or you can light things on fire. I just want to light things on fire.
We did candles.
Candles,
for
yes,
fire.
candles are good for fire. But I like to have elemental candles, and I brought these because these are my quick and dirty go-to when I want an elemental set of candles, and these were legit dollar store. I tried to pick scents. Do you do this too if you ever get these like crummy jar candles? These are not like good quality at all.
No, they're not.
But I'm like, if I'm grabbing these, I try to grab ones that are like this one's green tea. I'm like, well, that's kind of earthy and it's green. So just even picking ones that have good color correspondences or using those little spell candles like what you have in the different colors for the elements is great. But I really enjoy working with elemental energies. But I'll pull these out if I really want something very visual. I will say I don't specifically recommend them because of the crummy wax, but they are perfect if you need a quick and dirty, or if you're going to be working outdoors. These are also really great.
Yeah, I was going to say, those make great travel ones too, because the glass is usually pretty thick and durable. Yeah. So you can pack them in a basket or in a backpack and kind of hike to your location and stuff like that, and they're usable. That's the thing. Like, especially if you're starting out, you might not have tons of money, and it's totally fine to start with the cheap stuff and work your way up as you go along. There's no shame in that.
Absolutely.
I personally don't put specific element representations on my altar, because I really feel like almost everything that I have that is naturally sourced or based kind of represents that. So like I have these birch, they're like fallen branches that were salvaged and then cut up into like tea light holders essentially. Ooh. That's going to have earth because it grew from the earth. It grew partly through harnessing water. It grew through harnessing the light of the sun, which is fire, and obviously the branches reach up into the air towards the sky. So for me, I just always found that every time I tried to include specific earth or different element representations, it crowded my altar up to the point where I didn't have room to work, and also I just didn't find them visually pleasing and appealing. And my altar has to be aesthetically nice for me to want to continuously come to work at it. So I don't go in much for the elements, but I do go in for natural elements as much as possible. So I have, there's a steer's jawbone over there that I found on a Facebook, like a bidding wars group.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I have both sides of it. There are natural elements from the thing here. That is a deer antler from a secondhand store that once upon a time was mounted. There's holes drilled in it for the mounting. There's lots of different things like that. There's some crystals on my altar. You can't see, but there's a slice of like a tree trunk there as well, which I use to kind of elevate some things. So for me, there's got to be natural elements. So I like having sticks. Around the fall, I usually have chestnuts on my altar that I find on my walk around the neighborhood when I'm walking my dog. This is a driftwood stick that I found at the river, and for a while this was my wand. So
I love that.
But even wooden doweling can be used for your own wand. You can paint it if you want or not. You can use it natural or however you like, but for me there's got to be natural elements. That is my big thing. I have to be able to see natural stuff on my altar. I just do. That's how I feel really connected into my witchcraft.
I think that's what reminds us that we're working with a nature-based craft, right? And I think that it's important to have something that pulls you into a space where you feel like you're in your zone, and everybody's zone is accessed a little bit differently. And you might find that what pulls you in is something really like created and constructed, whereas for somebody else it's raw and it's natural.
Well, I've seen people's altar pictures or videos, and they've got like disco balls and lucky cats things and like children's toys and crayons or art supplies and like do whatever flicks your switch.
Right? Like just it's important, I think, to feel at home in your sacred space, whatever way that is.
I always say for me, nature is my church. That is where I feel the most connected to spirit, to deity, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So when I can't be out in it, You know, if the weather's too crummy, or if I have to, you know, watch my kids and they're not well or things like that, I want nature to be able to be part of my environment. So I have live plants all over my house, and then I have naturey bits that I pull in from outside to be on my altar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I would be totally remiss if I did not include something divination, because divination was really in a lot of ways my gateway into witchcraft and into the pagan community, was through like divination nights and like get-togethers. So I brought a couple things actually to show. One's kind of a multi-purpose, but I brought my like little Rider-Waite Centennial, and to be honest, this was not my go-to when I first started reading tarot, so I would say if you decide you want to get into divination or tarot, pick something that you actually are really, really drawn to. I love this now, and I find that this is super portable because it comes in a little tin, but if you're just learning, I think it's more important, personally, I think it's more important to find a deck whose imagery you kind of like to look at, because if you don't like to look at it, you're not going to want to learn it, you're not going to want to practice with it or play with it. Yeah.
I tried reading with a mini Rider-Waite for a long time, and I just hated it, and I've only come to appreciate Pixie's artwork now.
Same.
But even then, when I pick up a Rider-Waite, it's got to be more muted colors. I will not pick up the standard Rider-Waite because
it's too white and
it's
glaring.
yellow.
And oh my god, all the yellow.
It's in Technicolor. Like,
it's like
sorry.
primaries all the way.
Yeah, it's not my thing at all.
No.
Not for the regular stuff.
No. The other thing I grabbed. Have you seen this? So this is
I've
the Witchling.
heard of it, but I haven't looked into it too much. It's cute.
This would be so cute to work with as a beginner witch, because what it kind of is, so this is by Paulina Cassidy, and it's called Witchlings, and it actually is like a little oracle deck, but each card has like an intention, so like relaxation, euphoria, creativity, but there's things in here like if you any kind of energy you want to bring in, confidence. I actually was recently working with a abundance card in here on my working altar to do some spell work. But what's neat is that the artwork is super cute. You could use this totally as like an oracle and like just draw a card for the day. But it also comes with this really adorable little Witchlings book of spells. So if you were just getting into craft and playing around, this is really neat, because for each card, there's like a couple of little spells you could play with, and they're super simple. They don't have a bunch of complex ingredients. I'm not personally one that like goes to pre-written spells, but when I was new, this was really exciting to me, finding
when you're starting
spells.
out, you don't know how to craft a spell. You don't know how to do any of that stuff. You know, I sometimes I get really frustrated with some of those old school witches who are like, try to make everything yourself and try to write all your spells from scratch. And it's like, but don't you need to know how to cast one? And
like,
what
it's like cooking, right?
First? Like, get the recipe.
Yeah.
And then plug in different ingredients as applies for different things. Then, like, once you've got a good understanding of it, then you can
personalize it. That's exactly like me with cooking. Like, first give me a recipe and a technique that somebody else who knows about cooking has like figured out.
Yeah.
And then I can start experimenting from there, but I'm not going to just jump out from scratch and start doing my own thing, especially when I'm new to something. So this is really cute and accessible, and a lot of the ingredients are basic kitchen things.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like a single candle, a little incantation, maybe
a glass bowl. Like, you can pick those things up at a dollar store or at a thrift store for so cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them, usually in each section, there's at least one spell that requires almost no ingredients. So there's always something you can work with.
Yeah.
And it's pretty decent size. So I feel like it's a good, like
that's like a third of the box is taken up in just that book.
Yeah, it's a pretty great little set. So if you were just getting into stuff, totally, I think that'd be really fun.
That is so cute.
Yeah.
So I did not suggest a divination thing for this because I wasn't into divination right off the bat when I started practicing witchcraft. It just wasn't something, like, I tried. I had a couple little tarot decks and stuff, and I thought they were cute, but they weren't things I was using on a regular basis. And I definitely wanted to focus more on my craft rather than on my divination. And I think the two things can go hand in hand, but they don't have to.
Totally agree.
So for me, what I wanted was I wanted to connect with deity more right off the bat. Gods and goddesses was like my thing. These do not have pictures of deities in them, but I have at various times throughout my practice had like little picture frames from usually the dollar store or from thrift stores that have images of either that I printed off of the internet or that I found like cards or other pretty pictures in magazines or something, and I cut them out and I framed them, and they went on my altar. Because let's be honest, God and Goddess statues, whether they are simple or whether they are intricate, they can be expensive.
So expensive.
And there's almost always in your beginner witch books some sort of recommendation to have like God and Goddess candles or God and Goddess statues on your altar, and they are highly promoted items. But let's be honest, I have a really beautiful horned god statue. That sucker was $70 Canadian. I went without one for years before I finally invested in one.
Yeah.
And picture frames did the job just fine.
And they feel special. Like, I feel like when you put something like that on your altar, it feels, you feel like you're honoring something. You're putting it in a pretty frame. Like, it's drawing your attention to it. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah, and the only thing I would caution is, because we are now in the age of Instagram and YouTube and stuff, if you're going to share images of, artists that you've printed off of like Google Images or something, if you share images of those on social media, be kind, find out who the artist is if you can, and then just put an image credit to, and then that way you're kind of covering your bases.
That's such a fantastic thing to do anyways, and I think it's a good way, if there's art that you really love, like what better gift or way to say thank you for this art that's touched you than to help other people find them as well and spread the word.
Artists, writers, any kind of creative people in general will tell you that some of the best way that you can thank them and appreciate them for their artwork is to give them credit, to share it out, but
Word
to
of
give
mouth.
them credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have only 2 things left. So
I do too, although one of them's behind you, so I'm going to tuck my hand in here because I totally forgot to grab it beforehand.
Perfect. So I wanted to talk about like a good beginner witch, like sort of book. And so in addition to that little Witchlings deck, which I think is great for digging into spells, when I was new to witchcraft, the place where I was the most overwhelmed was like ritual planning, especially as a solitary practitioner, like what? And a lot of the books that talk ritual that I had access to when I was discovering witchcraft were by like Scott Cunningham. They seemed really intimidating, very high magic, high ceremony kind of feel. And not Scott Cunningham. I'm thinking of Raymond Buckland.
Yeah,
Raymond Scott Cunningham was good.
Yeah.
Scott Cunningham
was really easy to read. The only problem I have with Scott Cunningham books is that you tend to get like the surface information, and then he'll be like, for more information, see my book on blah blah blah.
And then you're like, I don't want a whole library.
Yeah, before you know it, you put like 10 Scott Cunningham books in your Amazon cart, and you're like, oh my god, it's like $200 just to get like the basic information. Like, no.
But who I love, and Deborah Blake, who is the author of Everyday Witch Tarot, which is a deck that I adore. Mm-hmm. She has a book. She has a few great beginner books. One of them is called The Goddesses and the Details. She has a witch book there's another one which is all about like witchcraft on a shoestring. And her original book that I really grew to love from her is just the everyday, I think it's just called Everyday Witchcraft. I have it on my Kindle, so I didn't bring it today. But I adore her everyday book of rituals. This has rituals in it that are perfect for the solitary practitioner or for a group. And it goes through the entire wheel of the year, plus full moon and new moon rituals. And so you have a full year's worth of rituals to play with that are accessible. They're not overly, they don't feel out of reach or too fancy is, I guess, a good word. When I was new, I wanted something simple and accessible. And so this is fantastic because you get a whole year. And I love her writing style. It's very plain spoken. There's not a lot of fancy words or hard to understand.
Gotta love authors who do that. Thank goodness. And usually, the first few times that they put things like winter shins into the book, they usually in brackets explain counterclockwise, people.
Yeah,
counterclockwise.
this is what it means.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I love that. So accessible. I really like her, and I think these are relatively new. They weren't around when I was first learning. But they're great.
I think we both grew up in the age of Silver Ravenwolf.
Yes, Silver Ravenwolf.
Sorry, I can't recommend that.
No.
The one thing I really hate is that she actively encouraged in her initial published books. I don't think she does it so much anymore. Was actually encouraging people to lie to their kids to lie to their parents, teenagers. Yeah. I remember this one quote. I think it was from To Ride a Silver Broomstick that was angels, angels everywhere, and mom and dad will never care. And I was until they find out that you're lying.
Yeah, like, you guys do what you need to do to be safe. I mean, some of us were exploring witchcraft with people and at a time when we didn't really have a lot of that support, I
Well,
guess.
and witchcraft in the 90s was basically like you either were a grown up and you were old enough to do this shit on your own and be as loud as you wanted to be, and you paved the way by publishing books or things like that, or you were essentially a teenage witch, because that was a big thing then. That was books, that was in movies like The Craft and Practical Magic came out, and Hocus Pocus and stuff like that. And so witchcraft was becoming a little bit more like acceptable in the right circumstances, and there was a lot of teenage girls. It really became a big thing. This is why Teen Witch literally was like a craze in the 90s.
Totally.
Because of one of her books. And I think that's great. She definitely exposed a lot of people to witchcraft. But I think now, as a more modern society, you know, like now we have pride parades and things like that where, you know, in the 90s, you couldn't and you didn't do those things because that was a way to get your ass kicked. And now that stuff can be more open. Witchcraft is definitely, it's a lot more open, and there's a lot more of the public eye on us as a community. And so that means that there's far better information and published books out there.
And there actually, I think there's a lot more fact checking happening now
Thank
than there was
goodness,
before.
because that was the other big thing that drove me nuts about her books. Like, you know, intros saying like 9 million witches were burned during the burning times in the Middle Ages.
It was so
like,
sensationalized.
If there were 9 million witches, then the human race in Europe would have been wiped out. Can we please, someone check some history? But, you know, there are actual published works with real historians who have, like, degrees in this stuff that have published this. I don't know where 9 million came from, but
it's a really overblown number.
Every time someone publishes it in a new book, I'm like, go across the room. I'm like, I can't be done with it. No. I'm done with you. I'm done with you. Fuck. I did not grab a specific book to recommend because A, I think there's so many amazing beginner witchcraft books, and also B, I don't have a lot of beginner witchcraft books in my collection anymore. Over the years, I have thinned out my collection to be the ones I want to have on my shelf for a long time, but there are so many. There's also like a million videos on YouTube with a whole bunch of people's recommendations of beginner witchcraft. The one I will cite off the top of my head is if you are someone who's getting into witchcraft and you think that this is going to be something that you're going to carry with you throughout your life, especially if you plan on having children, Circle Round by Starhawk, Diane Baker, and I can't remember the other author's name. That book is amazing.
That is a great book.
It takes you through the Wheel of the Year. There are recipes, there are songs, there are ritual ideas, there are color correspondences, herb correspondences, stories to read out to your children. There are ritual suggestions and actual instructions for doing things. There are suggestions for things for like different, passage of life, rites of passage types of things throughout life. Things like essentially like a pagan baptism ceremony.
Yes, I remember that one, and I remember feeling like, oh, this actually exists, because when I got in, I didn't know it. That's a fantastic book recommendation.
There's sheet music bits in there so that if you are musically inclined, you could play them on guitars or pianos or other musical instruments and actually have music playing. That book is thick, but it is well worth it. Yeah, nice. And it's one you don't feel like you have to read cover to cover too, because each chapter is so specific that you can really just tackle the chapter on that Sabbath then, and then tackle the next chapter for the next Sabbath at that point, and then you can read ritual suggestions and other things like that as you get to them. And that's a fantastic book. But for me, the one thing I picked that I really like to have is some kind of book chart or even an app on your phone that gives you the phases of the moon.
Yes.
Because if it's one thing that a lot of us witches are bad at, it is staying with the phases of the moon. We are very, in a lot of ways, disconnected from nature. You know, we wake up in our houses. We're not necessarily waking up to sunlight anymore. We're not going to bed with the sun. We're not staying, we might stay up late in our houses, but we might not necessarily get to see the moon when we are out there. So having the moon listed, like the moon phases listed in a book or on a chart, There's wee moon calendars and planners, which are fantastic. The Llewellyn Witch's Datebook has moon phases and astrological correspondences in that. This particular one is from my self-love workbook by Dominique from blessingmanifesting.com, and so this is the Witch Life version for 2018. So she has for each month the last quarter, new moon, first quarter, and full moon, and really lets you see at a glance throughout the year when they are. So you could mark it on a regular planner or on a calendar if you wanted to as well.
I love that. And I think nowadays too, I feel like a lot of times I'm picking up even just mainstream calendars. Like even those crummy little pocket agendas sometimes have moon phases in them.
Yeah, they at least usually have the full moon and sometimes the new moon in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're pretty good. Even apps are fantastic too. You can get a lot of really great free apps that are just moon phases. There's one like Moon Trajectory is another app you can get for Android and for iPhone and things like that. And it actually lets you take your phone and it helps you to align it literally with the exact path that the moon takes.
Oh, that's really cool.
When it will be visible and things like that in your area, because the moon doesn't follow a typical and really easily predicted rising and setting path, and it does mark different paths across the sky at different times depending on where it is around us. So if you're trying to figure out to follow it so you can see it every day, this is a way that you can actually do that. So yeah, I think that's really cool.
I love that. I have an app on my phone and it has a widget so I can put it right on my home screen, and I always see the exact moon phase on every day. Yeah, I love that. Too. It really makes it, like, brings it present for me. So last thing I brought to show was a notebook.
And so did I.
But I brought like the fancy one because I actually scored this at a dollar store once.
What?
I know. I was like blown away.
That's leather. That is real leather.
I know. It was like, you know how they say it's like $1 or more though? I think it was like $5 or $6. But it was still, for a leather notebook, still
for
cheap.
A leather notebook?
But I found these and I think I picked up like 4 of them, and I haven't written in it yet because I'm one of those people that if I get a pretty notebook, I put it on the shelf and I'm like, I'm going to use it for something really special, and then it just sits there and sits there and sits there.
You need to watch a little bit more of Molly Roberts from her speak, because I think she'll probably inspire you to actually crack it open.
I will have to do that, and now that I have a little writing set, I might be doing that. But I brought this to show for 2 reasons. One, it can be really nice to have something special if you're not like me and fussy and will actually use it. But more importantly, have something that you will use.
Mm-hmm.
It can be great to have something that feels particularly witchy or special that you can have just for that purpose. But like any notebook works. But have something where you can chronicle, even if you're just noting like what your experience was like in a ritual or a spell that you did and what the results were or any of that kind of stuff. It will help you so much to grow in your practice to have something like that you can use.
I always say I don't like to write down every single, like especially if I've gotten a recipe or a ritual idea from a published book, I don't want to copy that into my own book necessarily because I've already got that information somewhere. Mm-hmm. So my personal Book of Shadows is more a collection of the things that I feel are witchy. Sometimes I'll write my own incense or spell recipes down in it. But I like it to be a source of visually inspired collection of my experiences. Sometimes I will journal like on just plain lined paper, and then I will stick it in there, fold it up, maybe tuck it in an envelope, which I glue in mine. But my working Book of Shadows right now is actually a big, thick book that has writing in it in Cyrillic. So I can't understand a single thing of what it says. And I white gesso over each page, and then I paint on it, I draw on it, I glue things in, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
So mine's much more of like an artsy kind of.
It sounds so like I want to say gritty, but it sounds like very gritty and like you're in it.
It's
and
very
you're,
tactile.
Yes, tactile is the word I was.
And I will use it to like note some specific things down. Like I put some of the OM symbols and meanings in it and things like that. Some stuff about the moon phases when they're in the different astrological signs. It's not this beautiful, pristine book. I really wanted something that I could pick up and use to kind of flip through every once in a while when I want to see. There's poetry in mine as well from myself and from other people, things that just really connect me to my practice, because I am so much more of a just practical throw shit down and start working witch. It's only afterwards I've been like, I should have written that stuff down. And then sometimes I'll try to remember everything that I used, and I might scribble it down on a notebook sometimes after and then include it, but I don't always write everything down as I'm planning stuff out.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that if you are the type of person where you probably won't write everything down, just take yourself right off the hook, right from the get-go, and be like, if I remember to write it down, go me. If I don't,
fine. Yeah,
it's totally fine. Yeah.
I think the practice is about doing it, right? And everything else is just icing.
That's why it's called the practice. My spiritual practice, because you're actually doing it. It's also the other reason I love the word, the craft, because you're crafting things, you're making it, and you're making it your own.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that is the best part of this, is that I don't have to take all these words written in a Bible or in some other holy book like a Quran, and I have to take it as gospel. I can take what works for me, and I can toss the rest.
I think that's so important. I think if you're new to this and you're just getting into it, the most important thing you can do is give yourself permission to do what you feel called to do, and like you said, leave the rest behind. I think hopefully some of this stuff has been really useful to you, and I think the most important thing we really wanted you to take away from this is just that you don't need any specific thing, just a curiosity and I think a willingness to try stuff.
And being okay with the fact that every once in a while you're going to fuck up. And
oh
just
God,
to be
yeah,
able to,
so much messing up.
Yeah, and let it be okay. Like, there's all this information out there that's saying, like, if you send out bad energy, it's going to come back to you times 3. And so you're really scared to sometimes do your initial spell work and stuff. But I got to say, up till this point, the universe has not come and bitch slapped me across the face in any real lasting type of way.
I mean, I've been slapped a little bit.
I've certainly experienced consequences for my work if I haven't done things with maybe perhaps the best intention. But they are learning, like, they're life lessons, they're craft lessons. Write them down, journal about them, take them for what they are, and then once you know better, do better.
Learn and grow. I mean, that's all you can really do, right? And I think that's where all the good stuff comes from. Yeah. So this was super fun to do. Thank you so much, Jess, for joining me. She's hosting. We're at her place, which is amazing. But it was super fun to have you on my channel and to do this and to talk witch and just get into all the gritty stuff that I love to play with. But thank you so much for joining us. We will have links to Jess's channel down below and a link to her video as well, which we will be doing. And that one is going to be, should we announce? Yeah.
No.
Okay, it's a surprise. You have to go to Jess's channel and check it out. So
and the link to that video specifically, we're going to put in the comments.
Yeah, so it'll be really easy to just
in the description, not the comments.
Yes, description box. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you all again very soon. Bye. Hello, everybody. Lisa here from... I forgot my channel name.
Supportive Tarot. That's hilarious.
I can't believe I forgot my own channel name. I got it now. Hello, everybody. Lisa here. Welcome to Supportive... I just did it.